G'day, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Military Mindset for Business podcast, where I am going to get a bit fanboy today because I've got someone from one of my favorite TV shows on board, Steve Baxter. Steve, how are you today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Pete. How's yourself?
Mate, I'm really well. So if you don't know who Steve is, one of the original sharks off the award-winning TV show Shark Tank, serial entrepreneur, former chief Queensland entrepreneur, sophisticated tech investor, but most importantly for me, former Army apprentice and fellow member of the great Royal Australian Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, or RAME. Steve, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Peter. I'm assuming you're infantry, were you? Looking at what's in the background there. So
no, that is 3RAR, the plaque up there. But I had the pleasure of being the tech support platoon commander at 3RAR. So I'm RAME myself.
Nice.
We've got my RAME hat badge on the slouch there.
Of course, beautiful.
Yeah, so mate, definitely a fellow corpsman.
Awesome.
Steve, your public profile is all about the show and your investing. And can you go back and tell us about soldering and what made you end up, I imagine, down in Albury-Wodonga area as an Army apprentice?
Yeah, I joined up as an apprentice in 1987, back when they could recruit, 15-year-olds. I was 15 at the time. I was 15 years, 10 and a half months. So I was almost 16. I play up the 15-year-old bit quite well. Joined as a boffin, as we call them, electronics technician. Did 3 years at Bongilla, Latcher Barracks in Bongilla. From when I was a kid, I wanted to be a soldier. So the last year of high school I did was year 11 before joining up. So I was actually quite young. I started school quite young. Probably something my mum always had an issue, and now I have kids. I understand why starting kids too early in school can be an issue. So, I had a pretty good first 10 years of school. And then the last year 11, I just became a rat bag kid, basically, and had a shit year. And luckily the Army took me. I applied to the Army, Navy and Air Force, as a armaments fitter. One of the guys who manhandled a bomb on the bottom of an aircraft. I was told I didn't meet their education requirements. And the Army took me as electronic technician. So how desperate were they? So there you go.
I've got to admit, 15 is pretty young. I joined the Army at 30. So I'd actually had a full career before I went to college. And I was probably one of the 5 oldest dudes in the whole course, at 30. 15, you're a Queenslander. What was it like just rocking up? So back then, did you go do your Kapuka first and then go into the school?
So we did. We enlisted in Brisbane. I was from Rockhampton. I enlisted in Brisbane. I don't know, there was maybe 30, 40. I can't remember, to be honest. At least a bus full, that's for sure. And then we did about 4 weeks of initial training. Called induction training, and then over the next 2 years, through a series of a couple of weeks a year, and then so it's half a day every week. You did military training, so you did a certain module of whatever, throwing grenades or pistols, or however it might be. And so you completed that over. We did 3 years. So the other trades did 2 years. So vehicle mechanics, fitters and turners, chippies, plumbers. I can't remember what else is there now. Think about it. I've missed some, obviously. They did elect mechs and other bits and pieces. They did a 2 year, so all the training was completed in 3 years. So third year was a bit of a boondoggle, to be honest. There wasn't much. You sort of just did different stuff. You'd already done all you're IET qualified, for want of a better term, I suppose. So I was just done over 2 years. I did we did jungle. It was called
Jungle Warfare Center.
Jungle Warfare, LWC, Land Warfare Center. It was called at the time. Sorry. So when I first joined up for 2 weeks every September, the first years had to go to just turn 16 and just go to Canungra. And then they changed that in second year, though. That's my phone, it can go away. They changed that to from now on, all second years will go to Canungra for 2 weeks. We got to do it twice.
Yeah, lovely. So, down in the creeks and the mountains, there's some seriously close country up there, up in the hills behind the Gold Coast.
The first time we did it, it was pretty tough. And the second time they said, we're going to change the program this time. It was identical program to the year before. So we had a bit more swagger, a bit more cockiness to us, if you know what I mean. And so we didn't really, and they took that, as soon as they see us slacking off or they don't see performing, and so we knew it was coming next. So we, nothing could really phase us, to be honest. Much as they told us the program changed, it didn't. And so we just didn't, so they gave us a hard time. But once you've been in the army for over a year, you just know when to roll with it, right? You don't take it too seriously. Okay, he's going to get it out of his system. Have your dummy spit, get done with it. Let's move on. So,
a couple of weeks out bush, you're always going to come back to a warm shower eventually. And the thing about doing places like Kanunga is you've got to earn your stories to tell your mates. Yeah, unless you're out there in the bush and sleeping in the dirt and clipping lantana, you don't have a good story to tell. You got to earn them.
Yeah, look, and it was boys' own adventure, right? A lot of fun. So it's I think that second trip was a lot more enjoyable than the first trip. That's for sure.
So once you got out of the school, where did you go into the broader army, into the real army, as they call it?
Yeah, got posted up to One Base Workshop, Balimba, up here in Brisbane, on the Brisbane River, called posting. But I spent most of the year away on course, to be honest. They went straight back down to Bandana, Albury Wodonga, Ramey Training Centre for my TSG course, Technician Electronic Systems Ground course.
Yep.
Was that 4 months, I think, from memory. And then I came back and they sent me over to the airport there, Meander, I want to say it's called Meander.
Yeah, just right in behind Brisbane Airport there.
Yeah, well, they've got the biggest distinctive feature there now is like there's about 500 Bushmasters parked up there, basically. Still sitting there. Yeah, so it's just war stores, right? And they just say, hey, great, there's in this shed here somewhere, there's like 6,000 compasses. Go and find them and test them.
Yeah,
it wasn't that glamorous. So it was what you do in the army. Compasses, binoculars.
With a pocket full of non-tech, was it NTIs, non-tech stickers, or they?
Too long ago now.
Look, so I've got to admit, from me, army was the best job I've ever had, and in particular, the cohort of mates that I've went through my courses with. There's something like, even if I haven't seen any of these mates for 5, 10, 20 years nearly 20 years since I went through the college. How do you reflect on your experience, and do you have a similar thing with your class of apprentices? I know they always name apprentice class number X, whatever it was.
We're the 42nd class, obviously the best class ever to go through the schools. So bloody tight band. Hey, you would have seen we get around with our tax stickers now, with our 40-second crabs on it, our crabs them on the back and the whole thing. If you see me on the show, I wear my 40-second crab on the show. I wear my disc here. I should take it home. And it's Ramey. So I got a lot of mates who went to SIG. So I had the choice either to go to Ramey or Signals Corps. I went to Ramey. It was actually good. It was actually the day the core postings sort of came out, or the core allocations came out. They put us in a room and basically said, "Hey, here's where everyone can go. We'll come back in half an hour. If you haven't done it yourself, we'll start putting you in postings." We all got it worked out by ourselves, which was pretty good. One bloke was in jail, so he got the shit posting at the time. Yeah, he was. He actually got posted. Was it 2 Sig Melbourne, 1 Sig? Oh, the signal, base signals regiment Melbourne, whatever it was. So, but it's been tight. So, like, it was always pretty good. And then a couple of chaps arranged a 20th reunion. Obviously, 2007. I had that in Albury, which was great. And we had a 25th, 30th. I organised a 35th last year up here in Gold Coast. The rule being, he who organises it can put it in their own town. So be careful what you wish for, type thing. So, but is
being careful what you wish for having all of those classmates back in the same spot at the same time, and the risks that just comes with, or is it actually being the host with the most?
Oh, look, there's been some stories at the reunions, probably as many as there was at apprentices school, to be honest. But we've got we had our 35th was delayed because of COVID by about 10 months. But we had so we still have blokes in. Shocking. We've got Dean Thompson. He's now Brigadier Dean Thompson, in charge of all Army rotary wing AVS. He was a fitter and an armourer. Basically, got sick of qualifying weapons, so he thought he'd become a bloody helicopter pilot. We've got Dean Riggs. He was a vehicle mechanic. Did his 9 years. Got sick of turning a spanner, so went and did selection. Now he's an SAS warrant officer. Yeah. And a whole gamut in between. To be honest, there's probably of the 100 or so that graduate, there'd be probably 15 to 20 still in. I reckon the blokes under them must take their guts. It's like no one's getting promoted until these blokes move on. So, but it's tight. Everyone gets like, because it was when you're 15 and 16, you niggle each other. A bunch of young boys put into a bloody school like that. There's obviously there were, I get along with a lot more of them now than I did when I was apprentice to school, put it that way, I suppose. So
I guess my highlight about being in Ramey was there was a certain kind of larrikinism or a certain mischievous, with the soldiers. As a platoon commander, that was always a point of challenge. But particularly the warrant officers that I had that really set me up for success in my career, like they basically gave me all the answers, gave me all the solutions, made me look good in front of my boss. Those guys that had come through and learned how to nurture us junior officers, I just really can't. Pete Skinner, for one, who was my ASM at 3RER. I doubt he'll ever listen to this, but if you ever do, Pete, thanks very much. But I remember one little story I've got from my troop. It's probably my favorite story. We had a game called flog ball, and I don't know whether this is actually legit nowadays or not, but it was in a tennis court and we played soccer, and it was obviously rankless. And everybody had one rolled up newspaper, and we played soccer with the newspaper, but you weren't allowed to hit anyone in the head or anyone in the privates. But apart from that, there was just no rules. Yeah, so it was a brilliant game of soccer in the tennis court. But the pack had a great way of what you couldn't bully anyone, because the pack had a great way of actually, if someone was getting wailed on a bit, then the pack would sense that and give them a good wailing back. So
yeah, it was pretty. The units were pretty. I mean, I didn't really. I was never really posted. So I was posted out of apprentice school, went to one base. Out of there, I went for 1C regiment workshops. Out of there, I then I ended up doing a Rapier RBS 70 course, went down to one base, Adelaide Log Battalion, it was called. They just changed names from, was 5 base, then it was turned to Adelaide Log Battalion, I want to say. And then ended up going up the hill to 16th Air Defence, and that's where I got discharged out of there. And the gunner units, God, gunnies. But anyway, gunner units are something different. But we were sort of locked in a big high secure top secret compound, basically. So we had like at least 10 minutes notice someone was coming in to make trouble, because they had to sign in, and we got phone calls to wake up and everything else, right when you were sort of sleeping in the back of a truck somewhere.
Get out of the breezeway and get some grease on your face, make sure you look like you're doing something.
Doing something real. Look busy. So yeah, they were all pretty tight, to be honest. But every military unit, like it's like the apprentices, like we get our wives, a lot of our wives are friends, and partners are friends, and they just amazed. Like we'll sit there and we'll just give each other shit. They come back later and say, "Do you really like that person?" Because I felt like a fight was we were best of mates. We're just giving each other a good bit of lip, but then someone will come in from like the 43rd class and then it's on. But then if a grunt walks in, then it's like, no, I don't like grunts either, right? So the way you can divide military units by experience and units and subunits and corps and God knows what else, trade, just all the rest, right? We'll find any way just to have a crack at someone.
It's always us versus them.
And I've never seen it get nasty either, right? It's just everyone knows, everyone gets, never seen it get nasty. Even on like everyone's full of juice, it stays pretty calm.
Always us first, then my platoon versus your platoon, my company, your company, but then my battalion versus your battalion. There's always a way to find someone, and look at someone on the other side. Coming now to, you mentioned Adelaide Hills. That I know you transitioned out from just doing some notes before into Adelaide and started your first business. I'm always interested in this bit where, do military skills directly apply to entrepreneurship, or are we doing something totally different? So for me, one of the greatest stories of veteran entrepreneurs are the couple of lads who fought together at Lone Pine, who went to France, got on a cutting edge military course to go and learn how to fly. And these two dudes, Hudson Fish and Paul McGuinness, when they got back to Australia, they thought, hey, let's move out to Winton, buy a plane and fly it west. And those two lads took their military skills, started a business, and now the icon that is Qantas, is the result.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew the last part, didn't know the first part. There you go.
Yeah, so two lads, they were literally infantrymen privates at the time. And when they got to France, it's like, man, who wants to get on this course? And as you know, not many people volunteer to do a course in the military. Like, hands up, who wants to get on the course? But they're like, okay, let's get the fuck out of the trench, learn how to fly. One guy became the pilot. The other guy was his navigator, got back to Australia and cracked on.
Yeah,
just in your experience, were you one of these people that took, your technical skills into your first business?
So I was a electronics technician, and then I did like technician electronic systems ground, which is everything except radio, radar, and avionics. So everything from like compasses, binoculars through to tank fire control, RBS-70 Rapier, but mostly optical stuff. Things you clean a lot of glass basically. So we used to go and exercise quite a bit. And back in the days when we had these things called books for young people, they're made from dead trees. So, we used to exercises were like, you drive there, spend 7 or 8 days driving there. You'd set up for a week here, 2 weeks there, whatever it might be. And for mostly just waiting for people to break stuff and bring it in. We had especially at 16, we had quite a large with the 8-ton Mack trailers with the big shelters, big pommy shelters for Rapier. So, people bought stuff to us. We didn't go to them for obvious reasons. And it was boring. So, I used to take books, and it was easy to get through a book. Then I enrolled in a part-time computing degree, part-time fully external computing degree, and just started doing computers. So I sort of taught myself the software and the computer stuff. We did a little bit of microprocessor software, but very, very low down code, like literally programming ones and zeros as opposed to programming languages. So I taught myself most of that. So I would say that I took nothing technical from my military time into my business. What I did take was at times to my detriment is some of the attitude. So business doesn't have a problem with jack. And that's a big problem when you get into business. And that actually can really people, close to you, even business partners, knifing you in the back. It just, something that would not occur in the military, right? Or it would occur once and the person would stop it after that, right? So, so I found that hard to interpret, and I still find it just, I don't get it when the dog thing just pisses me off. I brought in my attitude to staff and discipline to some degree. Don't be fucking late, right? And okay, if I might pay for you to go get a skinful the night before. It doesn't mean you turn up drunk and you can't do your job. It's small things. It's almost like respect, right? And so I'm and unfortunately nowadays, especially with COVID and we're from home, that you just have to get used to people not turning up on time. It's just crap. So, but for the most part, I took a lot of those more softer skills, and not in a soft attitude, but as opposed to hard tech skills, more softer skills around, okay, this is what you do. But other things as well, like big and Ramey on manuals, the EMIs and other bits and pieces, right? They were great. You don't have to fix something. You just didn't have to. You pulled the book out and you read it, right? It told you what to do, and you had to get to apply your basic hand skills. So I've always been a huge fan of quality systems. So that's documentation. Going forward, just document stuff, understand how it's done. So, so I took a lot more softer things and then I think harder technical things away from my military experience, to be honest.
That point there about systems and processes. So like our business is called Trusted Process, particularly for that reason, because for me, business is all about control. And there's 2 ways you get control. We need consistency plus visibility. If I can see what's going on in my business and I can trust that my team is doing it my way, and consistency or process is really just the essence of how do we capture excellence and repeat until we learn, then we adjust, and then we repeat. So this essence of just consistency, trying to find the one right way and the constant quest for improvement, I guess is my biggest takeaway, like into our business. I just want to unpack a little bit about risk. How did you assess your own appetite from risk to leave a steady job and to go all in on running your first business?
Oh, right. Well, I probably should have thought harder, to be honest. Look, we were a peacetime army. It was a boring soul army. I mean, to be quite honest, we most I wasn't joking before about, getting noticed to be woken up because people would bring stuff in that was broken. We couldn't get repair parts. We couldn't, it was a really boring army. There was no sense of urgency through the entire system. I mean, people were motivated to a point, but when you go up every day and they're just finding busy work for you, and that's soul destroying, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. So, so I left in '95. So it was a pre-Timor. You guys, people did do war and warlike service, Rwanda, and the peacekeeping missions and whatnot. So I'm UNTAC and other bits and pieces. So I'm not dissing that, but they were few and far between. So and so the question about motivation was, sorry, Pete, I forgot the question. It was about motivation.
Yeah, I was interested in your appetite to leave a stable job and to just risk getting out there and giving it a crack, because you didn't go to employment from the military. You went straight into your own business. Is that right?
So I got out in September 95 and I started the business in November 94. An Army Marine Corps installed 23 phone lines and sort of just went for it. I forgot to ask, how do you install 23? How do you permission to install 23 phone lines on a Marine Corps? I knew the answer, so I didn't fucking ask. Just went and did it right.
Forgiveness rather than permission there.
Oh yeah, the march out inspection was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, see what I got there, sir.
They would have, and people would have had no idea. Like, what's this guy got all these cables running the house for? Like, literally would have been no fathom understanding what that was.
Pretty funny. So, so I started that, I did because the reason I was experimenting. So I was doing this university study part time. I had this weird subject called Unix, and they sent me this crap, like on 2 floppy disks, this version of Unix you could boot up. It was crap. So I researched through bulletin boards at the time, found out this thing called Linux, managed to download the 115 floppy disks required for that, managed to get that installed, which is, this is like 0.99 or 0.92. So it went from 0.04 to 0.99. It was almost release quality. It jumped quite markedly back then. And I managed to get it installed and working, and then plugged some dumb terminals to the back and did a bit of networking. And I thought, dumb terminal, just a modem. You can obviously plug some more into this thing and start a business. And that was it, literally. And I sat down and I did a bit of a business plan, I suppose, to a point. But, it was more itemizing expenses, things I needed to buy, and then what I needed to recover, and then what I needed to recover for a wage. And thought, well, this seems pretty easy. Had a chat to my then fiance, now wife, and we'd saved 11 grand for a home loan deposit. And I said, look, and I think I just picked up for the booze one night, I want to say. It wasn't a big night, but I had 1 or 2 Eagle Blues in me, so I had a bit of courage going. And she and I said, I'll look at this idea to, take our home loan deposit and start this business, and we're going to do this. And she said, yeah, let's. Then I thought she'd say no, and that'd be the end of it, to be honest, and probably rightly so. And she said, no, let's get into it. And then
critical moments that can be life defining at any, they're just sitting there waiting for you, just have the courage to give it a crack.
Well, the bigger one was when I went along to this computer user group meeting in Adelaide. I probably still take you to the house. It was near the old Mitsubishi plant, to be honest. I could drive there to this day because that night was so seminal in my thinking. We just used to take computers along and help people install Linux, and this guy had a backyard shed, basically. And I saw for the first time someone actually configure up the windowing system for X Windows, and they started using the Mosaic browser at the time. And the CGI Common Gateway Interface, the way we interact with servers via a web browser, had just come out as standard. And I just knew like what they were doing was just unbelievable, and you could just see how the world was going to change. I mean, and the 10 things I thought would happen all happened, and 100, 200 other things happened as well, if you know what I mean. So. And I sensed there was this window that was open that was going to close. Unless I leapt through it, there was going to be trouble. Well, I'd be trouble. I'd miss an opportunity. So that was probably a bigger moment. For me, it was just so crystal clear that, damn, these computers, we're going to start transacting everything over this stuff. Did I think we'd buy mattresses and shoes and dresses? No, but I thought banks, travel, things like books and CDs and other bits and pieces. Some things are really easy to see. Communications, obviously. But I think nobody predicted it to go as far as it has.
How did you get out of that first? Business? When did the opportunity arrive to sort of think, look, it's done its course. It's time for me to get out and try something new.
Yeah, so we moved out of the where we had the Marriott Quarter. We bought the house next door, believe it or not, and then moved all the stuff into that because it was closer to the exchange, and I could literally pull the cable out of the ground and take it closer. And then we ended up moving the business down into Adelaide City, into Crow Street, and in the city itself. Grew quite well. Grew to we got 35,000 customers at the end, 60 something staff. We had one incident where Telstra. So our main competitor was Telstra, our main supplier was Telstra, and that telecoms industry is terrible. We've done the same thing with NBN. We've done exactly the same thing with NBN. We're the stupidest nation alive. But they installed some equipment on our premises to help us, and it literally destroyed our service for about for about 7 or 8 weeks. We were going from maybe netting 30 new accounts a day to probably losing about 30 a week.
With 60 mouths to feed with no revenue while people have cut their service.
Yeah, because because when you're back from the days, the modems used to have when you used to connect up and you used to look at the connection speed. If you had a 3360 modem and you only connected at 26400, you'd actually redial and do it again because that speed mattered, right? There's only 30 cents, so everybody cared. So and the equipment they put in was just had firmware on it. Basically, it was a RIM. We all know RIMs are nowadays. And the people, 33.6 modems were connecting up at 18,000, 17,000 baud. It was terrible. So the name went to shit. I ended up getting a confidential settlement for Telstra. I never kept that confidentiality because it needed to be talked about. But it was just, and I thought to myself, that was a mistake. If they wanted to kill us, we are dead. And they just were launching Big Pond at the time. And I thought, oh, no way, I've got to get out. So we started the process of shopping it around. Went to the US to a trade show to meet a chap who sold businesses. His name he had a business called combroker.com, which is pretty cool. But we ended up selling to an Australian business, Aussie Mail, in the end, through a local connection. So, but that was, you have to take cash off the table at some point and de-risk the family.
So out of the army, first business in, first business out. How do we move from there to what we've, the suite of businesses, 1013, Beaton Zone and River City Labs today? What's those 15 years?
From that, we sold that. We moved back from Adelaide to Brisbane. My wife was from Brisbane, and I was from Queensland. Then met up with an old schoolmate. We started another business in 2001 called Pipe Networks. Went up listing at the ASX in 2004. And 2005, sorry. I left there as a full-time executive in 2008 and went with Google in California for a year before we sold that business, or somebody came along and acquired that business on market, TPG Telecom. So we listed it for 40 cents and sold for $6.30. So it was sort of a pretty good day. From that, I didn't really want to get back into business again. So I thought I'd just become an investor and help other people help other overly excitable people get carried away and set their future and make some money along the way. And so that's how I got into that, and I found more and more businesses that were, that I wanted to participate in, and they wanted our capital, so families. And then that one thing led to another, and I saw some deficiencies in the Queensland sort of startup ecosystem. So I started a not-for-profit called River City Labs to help address some of those issues. Along the way, then I got sort of tapped to be on the Shark Tank TV show, which was a lot of fun. Partway through that process, that the Queensland government asked me to be their second chief entrepreneur. They wanted me to be the first one, but I knew I had twins like months away from being born that no one else did. So I thought, no, I'll just wait a year. Thank you very much. I probably shouldn't go and do that while I've got brand new twins at home. And then, and then 1013 came along 2019, I think, late 19. We started 1013. Which is a tech startup syndicate investment platform. It's got about 82 million under management, about 650 investors, 44 businesses in that 30 businesses, 44 rounds in 30 businesses. So yeah, it's been quite successful. And
Beaton Zone. Now, this is something of real interest to me, particularly because, those of us that have, served in whatever capacity, it's something that I'm really curious in, is from a veteran's perspective, capability back into the ADF, particularly with all of, the current machinations of the world and geopolitics at the moment. What's Beaton Zone's, unique position? And, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Look, so back in 2017, I was asked to help out at Army Innovation Day. So a Ramey chap, Karen Joyce, who's now wing commander or group captain. The Air Force has got him now anyway. He wears a blue uniform. He's a great bloke. And he asked me, I knew him through a bloke I served with. He was a 40th class Appy. And he went to be commissioned. So when I left, they were getting a whole bunch of corporals and sergeants from Ramey and basically commissioned him with one pip, sent him to ADFA for 3 years to get a degree and then bringing them back in. So I got to meet Karen through a mate who did that. Karen was sort of head of Army drone, this weird thing called drones at the time, Karen was head of Army drones. It was almost like a cursed posting, I think, to be honest. He asked me to come along to Army Innovation Day in 2017 and, just as a bit of PR thing, soldier made good, get patted on the head, picture with the general. But, yeah, I didn't mind helping out. So I went along and I was amazed at what I saw. And I've been sort of helping out there ever since, but I've been trying to have the Army introduce more private capital into really early stage defence innovation. And it's been a tough road, and no direct fault of anyone I've been working with, but they're fucking hopeless at it. So, and I sort of was sort of working from the inside to try and do a few bits and pieces. It wasn't really working. I thought, if I'm going to change this, I need to demonstrate a better way. And the best way to demonstrate that, as a soldier, I always think that, soldiers love to complain, but I used to hate that. But I think you have to buy your right to complain. So, if you're doing a good job, you can complain. If you're doing a shit job, you can't complain, right? So
is the complaining the essence of the problem? Like when you've got a digger, why isn't this bit of kit not working? Is that really starting the essence of the problem that we're actually can be solving through innovation?
But the complaint's more. But I suppose it's more my philosophy on how you have input. I think input's more value when you're actually trying to fix things as opposed to just complaining for the sake of it. But you get, you see too much of that. I probably saw too much of the Army. We were a peacetime army. We had misaligned priorities, I suppose, would be the best description for it. So what I saw lots of things there. So I thought, right, okay, I want to do something here, and I wouldn't mind investing in some defence tech. I'm mostly a software investor. Defence is mostly light industrial, and they have two separate domains by quite a large margin. And as I thought, I want to actually also change society's opinions towards entrepreneurs who produce weapons or military-like things. So Beaten Zone's a very deliberate statement to say, we're not scared of lethal shit. We don't want to see this stuff fly for real. But if you come to us, be careful, because we are backing some people who can do some really violent things to you. Yep. So this is about trying to change that conversation. Defense of the realm is a good thing. And so we're trying to change that. And we're trying to lionize these entrepreneurs, not demonize them. So that's what Beaten Zone, we're early stage investors in sovereign, where sovereign means headquartered here and domiciled here. So they're headquartered here, for want of a better term. Businesses increasing capability and lethality and survivability. Where lethality is either the weapon, holds the weapon, aims the weapon, trains the soldier to use the weapon. We'll turn that coin over. Survivability protects us from their weapons. So, so that's what we're very keen on. We're backing Australian businesses to get into this fight with capital, and just finding them really good businesses out there, and giving them the care they need to start to keep their fires burning.
As you know, my thing really is, having been moderately successful in business myself. The Veteran Business Chamber and how I support veteran entrepreneurship is really important to me. But to be honest, I don't see, there are some, but not many, actual veterans going into that direct capability line. There's lots of veteran-owned businesses that support other businesses, like whether, business services, and we do anything and everything. But for veterans that are in particular, that understand capability, that understand particularly, you mentioned the light industry piece. What would your recommendation be to sort of how they get that foot in the door of crystallizing that idea into actually an event that they could bring to you one day?
Look, so I agree. So we don't have enough sovereign Australian businesses producing actual things that defence can order. Sovereign Australian businesses typically contribute to Australian industry content on behalf of an overseas prime who's making something maybe here under license. And I think it's dreadful. We need to change that. And that's not going to happen instantly. But COVID has taught us the limits of globalization when it comes to supply chains, and it's not a good story. So we need to, this is like a 1956 Israeli embargo moment, right, due to Suez. So that was a wake-up call. They had to start producing their own stuff and couldn't rely on overseas suppliers. And the whole world's had that. We need to listen. So when I talk to people about starting businesses and they ask me questions about, I've got this business idea, and I said, well, you should just do it. But you didn't hear it. And I said, well, I'm probably not your customer. So why does my opinion count? The only person who gets an opinion is your customer. And the hardest thing about starting a business is starting a business. So when it comes down to direct capability like that, the reality is that we're prisoners to overseas primes, because I heard it described the other day that the ADF has a subconscious bias about buying Australian defence equipment. And I said, no, there's nothing subconscious about it. It's a bias, and they love it. Yeah. Right. So they for whatever, no one got fired for buying Boeing or Raytheon type crap, excuse me. So, people who in their mainline job are probably very serious, brave individuals, when they get into the logistics role, take very cowardly decisions commercially. So we need them, supporting Australian businesses and backing them. So, but we also need businesses creating and building finished product here. So the defence needs to be able to order a bullet from here. They need to be able to order a missile. They need to be able to order a truck. So if they can't do that, then they'll order it for the person who sells it, which is the prime. So unless we can start making this stuff, and that's a gradual process, it's a process over years, we'll get there, then it's going to be hard, but we have to start by doing. And then now I'll colour this by saying that I sometimes in the entrepreneurial space feel like General Haig. I will send 1,000 people over the top to get one winner. Because that's at times the sort of, probably thousands a bit disingenuous, dozens, scores of people over the top to get one winner. That's actually what it takes. But we need the scores going over the top. So I always encourage people, my default is start a business.
Yep.
Not everyone will, but my default is start a bit. It's hard. And every other day is going to be hard, but it'll be so worthwhile. It'll be incredible. So, but I'm profligate with people's futures. I'm disappointed if it doesn't work out for them, but I will send more over the top.
Going back to your point there about when you transitioned and, running 23 different phone lines into your house, the actual preparation for the transition into business is really important. We did the same thing. We actually kicked the business off 12 months before the actual discharge separation date had. And we were lucky enough to actually, my business partner and I, Matt, were lucky enough to actually transition on probably more income than we ever earned in the army as we transitioned. But what we don't have, I believe, in Australia at the moment is just this consciousness for veterans to go into small business, just give it a crack as a legitimate pathway. So much of the narrative is about getting a job. And there's nothing wrong with getting a job, because getting a job might be your pathway to starting a business. But particularly in the States, there's 3 forms of transition out of the military, and you choose this as a pathway. You're like, right, I'm going to go get a government job. Pretty standard. Number 2, I'm going to get a job somewhere else. And that's what we do. But number 3, they get to actually choose their pathway into small business and entrepreneurship whilst they're in the military. And that's something that I'd really like to see, us to develop these frameworks so that people can actually get set up for success, that when they walk out the door, they've actually got a plan to do this.
My separation was when there was no transition back then. It was separation. Was a lot different. So I was due out in the following January. My 9 years was up. I took the year before that. I took the month off leave without pay in May. My business went nuts, and I went back and saw my boss and said, Peter Shanks is a great bloke, head of the workshop there at 16. And I said, okay, sir, I'm back. I'd like to get out, please. I think I was the only one of my ECN. My trade category actually left in the unit. I think we had 8 spots, and I was it. And he's like, well, we're the air defence unit for Australia, and you're the only guy who sort of left here who can fix this stuff, basically, because we just had manpower shortages. I can't let you go. I said, well, okay, get that. No, it was worth a try. And he said, but we've got Kangaroo 95s coming up, and if you be a good boy like that, and I'm on the way back, I'll recommend early discharge. Well, the best I could hope for. I thought it was a pretty good deal. And we got up to Catherine, and we set up just outside of Tyndall there about 2 days, and he's walked into the shelter with a signal, the old crappy wide toilet paper, shitty signal paper that comes in, right? And on that's authorising my discharge, basically. He said he sent the request through, and they've totally misinterpreted. Like, I want to get out. So 11 days after I get back, I'm discharged.
That's it.
He shows me, he says, the bargain's still good, right? You're going to be a good boy. I said, yeah. So I'm all good. I'll play the game. But it gets funnier yet. So on that exercise, I wasn't STI qualified and you weren't STI qualified. They gave me a STI. They pulled all the metal bits out of the STI and just gave me the plastic hull, right? Which is because it was lighter. So I got to carry that around, but I wasn't allowed to shoot this thing, right? Fucking pathetic. But I got back, and the unit was busy doing whatever. I don't know what, because it was so man. I don't know how busy we were. But they had to send 4 people on a STI conversion course. They went, I don't know, we'll send the guy getting out. So I went to the STI conversion course for 7 of my last 11 days.
But That's it. Just enough. Thanks for that, Army. Great use of the training there on someone that could have actually used it one day.
That's it. Did 4 days in discharge cell and I was done. So, you know, yeah. And then actually, it was an Army Innovation Day in 18 or 19, where at ADFA, this guy, Australian Targets, Paul, he's an SAS CEO, Paul, Paul, his name now. But he has a targeting company, and he bought this like 40-foot container at ADFA, and it was like a rifle range in the back. And so they actually had styes in there. So I went in there and I thought, oh, and I turned around, I'm actually next to Chief of Army who's firing beside me, which I thought, like, oh, got a bit of a rundown. So like literally the last thing I did before leaving the army was firing the sty for the first time. And I mean, and the sty had evolved quite a bit. It wasn't the old plastic or, you know, Austrian thing we got. It was all fancy with rails and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I got to blade a few targets. It was a bit of fun next to a general. It's always quite enjoyable.
On your last day out, thanks for coming, Steve. Good luck with the rest of your career. Rest of your life. Mate, just as we approach the wrap up, it'd be remiss of me not to just get a bit of guidance off you to help people. Like you must get pitched at left, right, and center. What should people do to prepare before they come and see someone like you, or whether it's you or whoever?
I understand what you're trying to get from the engagement. So, okay, I'm an investor. We see in this business here, my two businesses, we'd see 300 pitches a month. I don't. I have a team of 17 people. I see the 20 that make it through that process. But every investor's after an easy no. They can find something to say no to, because it you know, there's some gross things you just won't invest in. Okay, is it this or this? Yep, don't invest in that. Just get out the door. So they're always after those easy no's. So reduce easy no's. But I understand what you want to get from the engagement. Are you optimizing for another meeting? Are you actually do you think you'll get an investment for this person? Are you just wanting another meeting? Do you want to get a recommendation to see someone? So orientate your pitch towards what you actually want to score out of the meeting. And it's only on crappy TV shows that someone gets an investment after 8 minutes, right? It never ever happens, right? So, you know, so we'll put it through the gears here. We usually put it through at least 2 DD committees, which is probably sort of 3 to 6 weeks. And then the negotiation process can take another at least 3 to 6 weeks. Nothing happens that fast. And we're very keen to have it go a little bit slower, because we want to watch you as we go through this process. We'll ask, okay, how did last month go? Like, you said you're going to do X. Did you do X? Oh, you did X plus Y. That's great. Oh, you did X minus Y. Why is that? So, you know, investors, a smart investor will want to actually take a sensible amount of time to actually complete that. So don't think this is just going to happen and it turns up, and it just doesn't occur that way.
And valuations, you know, runs on the board versus potential. You know, how is your bias? Is this intuitive? Or I guess, again, it's a 6-week diligent process or whatever you're going through. You know, as you know, someone coming forward, they've always got probably an overinflated idea of the valuation. What's some guidance around, you know, just some basics on how you should value?
So it depends on the sort of business you are. If you're a genuinely global potential software, high margin tech business, then that's different to a light engineering manufacturer of trailers in Australia, for example, right? Hardware is well named. It's hard. Software is a lot easier, because, you know, that if 1,000 people use your software or use your online interface, whatever, use your product, your software product, the cost to deliver that for those extra 999 people is close to zero. That's the benefit of software. The gross margin in software is freaking huge. In hardware, it's not. You've got to ship stuff, you got to buy it, you got to weld it, you got to do this crap and pay duties and taxes and all the poop along the way. So that will change the valuations between those businesses. That's very important. So understand the space you're in. You're worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So in our software tech business, we see a lot of businesses. So we see a lot of valuations. We see a lot of deals going every month. So we get some idea what the market's paying. You know, some months your house worth 600,000. Some years your house worth 600,000 bucks. Might be a 650, 640. So valuations change. In software, they tend to do this. but it's really, we work in a market, and, you know, if someone else is willing to pay more, they'll get it. If we really want it, we'll have to pay the same or just as much, or we'll have to outline the benefits, our non-monetary benefits to that company. So what else do we bring other than just cash to this equation, or capital to this equation? So understanding the type of business you've got, understanding what comparable, so what other businesses like yours have traded for, what do they sell for, what do people pay for them? You're not going to get much more than that. If there's an average out there, and you get the average, you're probably pretty lucky. So there's a lot of investigation that has to happen.
Steve, mate, I really appreciate your time today. I guess, one of the biggest takeaways that I've got is, aspirational stories of veterans doing great thing in their life outside of the military. Currently, there's too much narrative around, what a veteran is and, all of the, the negative connotations around transition, but that's not the same story for everybody. And I really believe that we need to tell better stories. We need to have the, you see it, you can be it kind of stories. And if you don't mind, I'd love to keep sharing your story, because whenever I say, oh, that's Steve Baxter, Blake, oh, he was in the Army apprentice, they're like, really? And that's particularly for people, if you're serving or a veteran, like this light of aspiration and what you can achieve through business is just, it really inspires me. And thanks for your contribution. Last but not least, you're my Thai first favorite veteran entrepreneur. If you can get the Blue Wiggle, Anthony Field, on the podcast, that'd be great.
Is he a veteran, is he?
Anthony Field, former 5RAR infantry soldier who started a band and started the Wiggles. So that's my other.
So there's a guy, Lock Force, Troy Lockyer. He's got a business called Lock Force. He's an ex-SAS trooper. Another guy, Wayne Jones, runs XRG, ASX listed. I've backed Wayne and Denny into their business. Yep. So they're got Tim Warm's up here with Bench on. There's a bunch of.
Yeah, Tim's great. He was actually 2 episodes before you. So right. I got Tim. He's a good lad.
I'm sure there's more I can think about. That's for sure. Sorry, I should.
There's some great businesses out there, and I'll throw them in the show notes afterwards. Steve, thanks for your time. Really appreciate you sharing your precious time with us. And thanks for coming on the Military Mindset for Business podcast.
No, she's better. Thanks, mate.
This episode of the Military Mindset for Business podcast has been brought to you by Trust the Process. If you're looking to systemize and automate and delegate in your business, then head over to trusttheprocess.com.au. And by the way, if you're my random listener in Benin, South Africa, can you please get in touch on LinkedIn? I'd love to know who you are and why you're out there listening to this. So thank you for joining us on the Military Mindset for Business podcast. Stay tuned for the next great story. Take care all.